Hello, folks. So, in the previous video, we saw something about the ethical AI, the responsible AI principles. And now, in this video, we are going to discuss a classic case of AI bias in healthcare. And with the help of this, you will be able to understand that how really it is important to have the correct data and how really it is important to ensure that data should not be able to introduce, data should not be at least introducing the bias or any kind of uh, you know, uh, REI principle violations, right? So there is a case study which is in front of you, which is known as the Optum case study, and this was a classic case of bias in healthcare, and this happened in 2019 in America. So let's go through this, and I have collected this information from various sources, and I'm just going to discuss about it. So one of the most significant bioethics issue in AI developed by an American company in healthcare centers on racial bias in an algorithm designed to guide healthcare decisions. This was what was happening. The company and the issue. A prominent case that garnered widespread attention was with Optum, a United Health Group company. This was the company name where it happened. In 2019, a study was published in Science by researchers from UC Berkeley and the University of Chicago revealed that an algorithm used by Optum to manage the health of millions of patients in the US was systematically biased against Black patients. But what was the reason for this? The reason was the algorithmic purpose. The first thing was this: the AI aimed to identify patients with complex health needs who would benefit from extra care programs, predicting those who would require more extensive medical attention in the future. And where was the bias? The study found that the algorithm assigned the same level of risk to black patients who were actually sicker than their white counterparts. This means that white patients were significantly more likely to be selected for supplemental care programs than black patients with comparable or even greater health needs. The bias effectively halved the number of black patients identified for additional support. So, this solution was basically created for providing the additional support to those patients who are in more need, right? More need of critical, urgent medical attention. But because of the data, because in this was the past of America where the things were happening like black and whites, they were separate, right? They were treated separately, right? So because of that, not much data related to the black was available. Because not much data related to the black was available, because of that, the people from a certain region, from the northern portion, right? And there was a western portions. The eastern and the western portions, two portions were there. So most of the white people they used to live on the right hand side. I mean the eastern portion. So because of that, since black people lived on the western part, so there was not much data. So most of the data was available for the eastern part. So when the automated AI system was developed to identify who are the patients who are in greater need, then in the absence or because of the lack of data, it was only considering the people from the white race, right? And those were on the eastern side, right? The reason for the bias, what was the crucial point? The primary cause of this racial bias was the algorithm used healthcare cost as a proxy for health needs rather than direct measure of illness. Due to systematic inequalities historically, less money is spent on black patients in the US healthcare system compared to white patients, even when they have similar health conditions. So this was historically true, but now not these days, not these days, because these days the laws are there, right? Every country has, its past, right? Something wrong happened, something right happened, right? It's not only true for America, it's also true for India. It's also true for any other country for that matter. Okay. So when the system was developed, so in that case, the old data was utilized, and the data from that era when not much focus was given to the black patients, from that era the data was utilized. So you can understand that the data itself on which the AI model was trained, that data itself was biased. That data itself didn't have the enough information for the black people. So that's why unintentionally it became a kind of AI system which was doing discrimination, right? Because the AI was trained on this historical cost data, right? They just used that data. They didn't cook any new data. This was centuries old data. This was year old data on which it was trained. So what happened? It inadvertently learned to associate lower spending with lower health risk because for the black people less amount was spent, and this system, what this system did, this was a ML, this was a machine learning program. So what it understood that if the less amount is spent, then it means that they are at lower health risk. So it took the amount as the main parameter. But the problem was that if you take the amount as the main parameter, then what will happen to those black records, to those black data records from the history, from the past, when the black people were not taken care adequately? Not much spending was done for the black people. Even they were not able to spend much on their health because there are historical records of discriminations with them, and you have used the data from that time. So if you have used the data from that time, then obviously the data itself has the inherent bias, right? So that is why the problem happened. So this model just understood that if someone is spending less on the health needs, then they are not in much need of the health facilities urgently, basically. Okay, so this was the reason. So, perpetuating and exacerbating existing racial disparities in healthcare access and quality, it caused the bias. Key bioethical implications highlighted. What were the key bioethical implications? Algorithm bias and health inequality. The AI, instead of being a neutral tool, became a mechanism for discrimination, directly impacting who received critical care and amplifying existing health inequalities. Data bias. It underscored that AI is only as effective and fair as the data it's trained on. So everything is data on which your model has been trained on. If historical data reflects societal bias, then the AI will embed and scale those biases. Transparency and explainability. While the bias was eventually uncovered, the black box nature of many AI algorithms makes it incredibly difficult to identify such biases before they cause harm. Okay, so next thing is accountability. The incident raised significant question about who is accountable when an AI system causes the harm. The developers, the deploying organization, or the historical data itself. And now comes the last, bioethical implication: justice and fairness. It sparked a critical debate about the fundamental principle of justice and fairness in the application of AI, particularly when it impacts vulnerable population and access to essential services like healthcare. Right. So I hope you must have understood that what was the case here and what is the overall purview of having an AI which has been trained on a biased data. Right. So if you have to understand this, then you must need to understand the AI holistically. It is not only something you are asking and it is giving you the response. It is something beyond that. Beyond that, there is some set of data on which it has been trained. And if that data itself was historically biased towards certain section of the society, then in that case, the AI will be as unbiased as your data was. This is the correct statement. Your AI will be as much unbiased as your data is. It has been trained on a data. That is why if you have trained it and if you have to imply the employ the guardrail, then in that case the data must need to be, you know, corrected. It must need to be uh, adjusted in such a way so that the inherent bias need to be removed. And that is all the work of machine learning developers, the data scientists, the machine learning experts who are writing the machine learning models, right? So I hope you must have understood the ethical consideration, need of the ethical consideration while AI system is developed. And with this, you must have also understood that why it is really important to test an LLM effectively. If you are testing an LLM, then you are not only testing whether it is able to respond or not. You are not only testing whether it is giving me the grounded response or not. You also need to test whether it is performing ethically, it is following all the responsible AI principles or not. Otherwise, it will not be able to adhere to the principle of inclusiveness, right? One of the principle is also inclusiveness, which includes everyone, every section of the society, every race, every gender, everything, right? So when it comes to the LLM testing, then some kind of LLM comes to you. You start testing it. So what will be those parameters when you will be testing an LLM? So the most important parameter will be the ethical AI consideration. You need to write your test cases around that only. And apart from that, the other dimensions like the other matrices, for example, the fairness, not fairness, basically these are the RAI guidelines. Apart from RAI guidelines, I'm talking about like how grounded your response is, how complete your response is, how factual your response is. All these things are really important, right? So it will reveal everything. A good testing of LLM will reveal everything related to the data on which this LLM has been trained on. I hope you must have understood the concept and the intent behind this particular video. We'll meet soon in the next video. Till then, have a nice day and bye bye.